So this really now, we're firmly in the 1950s, right? And the title here, a groundswell, that is an incredible upsurge, right? That comes from all over, all at once. And in a way, we're entering here the culmination of the whole class, right? The huge popular upsurge that delivers the great legal victories for black people in this country. So, this was segregated America in 1953. The states that are completely darkened here on the map are those states where segregation in schools was required by law. So there are many times places in here that people don't immediately think of when they think of the South. Delaware, Maryland, Oklahoma. These were all completely segregated by law. These states, the one with those diagonal lines cutting across them, meant that parts of the state were segregated. So it was a local option, as the map has it down there. And that meant if one county wanted to segregate, they could, right? It was up to the individual parts of the state. So what are the states that are completely light? But why are those that way?
No segregation.
They're all mixed in the classrooms.
Not quite.
It's not in their laws.
Exactly, it's just not mentioned in the law.
But there was segregation.
Well, it just means that the law says nothing about it one way or the other. So what are the dotted states? Right, that's where it was prohibited by law. So the dotted states are the states that actually have laws saying education cannot be segregated. So that means, though, that parts of Kansas, Wyoming, Arizona, New Mexico were racially segregated, as were, again, like Delaware, Maryland. And remember, the standard from the Supreme Court has been that you can separate people based on race as long as what?
You make it equal.
As long as it's equal. And what has equal meant? Simple existence, right? So this is equal, according to the standards the court has set for decades. These are two libraries in the same southern school district. So this is the library from the white school, and this is the library from the black school. What do you notice about their library? There are no books in their library. There's a furnace in the middle of their library, but no books. How could these possibly be conceived as equal? Because it exists. And there are signs outside both these rooms that say library. So there you go, it's equal.
So the Supreme Court cases really only pertain to law schools?
Exactly. Those decisions were just limited to law schools. But with those decisions, was the Supreme Court kind of giving the NAACP some hints? Yeah. It's like they were saying to the NAACP, come back and ask for more. Right? So the NAACP, I want to say one more thing here about this. Across the South, we mentioned this long ago, but it's good to refresh it right here. Across the South, in the most equal part of the South, they spent twice as much to educate a white kid as they did a black kid. And that was in what parts of the South? The most equal parts of the South. In the most unequal parts of the South, they spent 8 times as much to educate a white kid as they did to educate a black kid. And who pays for these schools?
Both white and black.
That's right, every taxpayer. So if you think about it, it's really like layers of absurdity. It means that black taxpayers are paying for a crappy school to educate their kids and a great school to educate the white kids. Now, here we are in the 1950s, right? And it's been almost 30 years since James Charles Hamilton Houston went to Howard and established a law program to train civil rights lawyers. So 30 years later, how many great black lawyers have come from Howard? A lot is exactly the right answer. Right, a lot. Howard Law produced more civil rights lawyers than any school in the country. These were brave lawyers that worked for the NAACP. Today, when we think lawyer, bravery is often not the first thing that comes to people's mind.